Hello everyone, and welcome to Reading with Mrs. Adams. I'm Mrs. Adams, and today I've selected 3 stories and 2 poems all about winter and snow. Now the first story that I'm going to read to you today, boys and girls, is called The Hat. This is an original story by Jan Brett, and she did the illustrations as well. This is a story about a little girl named Lisa who's getting ready for winter. And she lives in a place where it gets cold and it snows, and all of her wool clothing, her woolens, are stored away in the spring, summer, and fall. And so she's getting them out, and she wants to hang them on a clothesline to air them out so she can wear them when it starts to get cold and it starts to snow. Now, one thing that I love about Jan Brett's illustrations is, first of all, they are gorgeous illustrations, and they have lots of details. But the one thing I want to point out to you is that she uses both pages of the book to illustrate the main action that's happening on this page. And that's what the text reflects. But she also has these side panels that have smaller pictures. And it's sort of what's going on behind the scenes. As Lisa is hanging up her woolens on the clothesline, then these side panel pictures show some other things that are happening. So I want you to pay close attention to those side panels. And as well, in this story of the hat, there's a top panel. And I want you to pay attention to that. That's the clothesline. And so you can see what happens to all of Lisa's woolen clothing. So let's get started, and let me read to you The Hat, written and illustrated by Jan Brett. The Hat, written and illustrated by Jan Brett. The Hat, written and illustrated by Jan Brett. G.P. Putnam's Sons, New York. For Sarah and Joshua Carty. Winter was on the way. Lisa took her woolen clothes out of the chest and carried them outside. She was hanging them up in the fresh air when a strong wind blew one of her stockings off the line. Curious Hedgie found it and poked his nose in. When he pulled it out, the stocking was stuck on his prickles. "Oh, how embarrassing," Hedgie thought. The mother hen came by with her chicks. "Cackle, cackle," she clucked and laughed. "What's that on your head, Hedgie?" "Why, it's my new hat," he told her. "Isn't it beautiful?" The mother hen cocked her head as if she had an idea, and off she ran. Hedgie saw the noisy gander looking down at him. "Honk, honk! Ho, ho, ho!" the gander laughed. "Look at that! The hedgehog has flipped his gizzard." "Laugh today, gander, but tomorrow when it rains, my hat will keep me dry." The gander thought for a moment, and off he ran. The barn cat watching from a tree as Hedgie tugged at the stocking. "Meow," he called down. "What a silly-looking hedgehog you are, with that thing on your head." "But my ears will be warm in the snowstorm." Purred the cat, and off he ran. The farm dog and her puppies found Hedgie in a patch of brambles. "Hedgie, is that a hat you're wearing? How funny you look," she barked at her puppies, yelped, and giggled. "But I'll be cozy and dry when it snows," Hedgie said. The farm dog's ears perked up, and off she ran. Oink, oink, the piglets squealed. What are you up to, Hedgie? The mama pig asked. Making sure my hat doesn't fall off if an icy wind blows up. I see, said the mama pig, and off she ran. Hedgie, what is that ridiculous thing on your head? The pony snorted at Hedgie. That was the last straw. It's my hat, of course. Don't you know that everyone should wear a hat in winter when it's cold and snowy? Hedgie shouted. The pony looked startled. Hedgie was usually so friendly, and off he ran. Hedgie just wanted to be alone. He was tired of everyone laughing at him, and with this thing on his head, he wouldn't even fit in his den. He didn't see Lisa running after him, the other stocking in her hand. Come back, you silly hedgehog, she called. Oh no, Hedgie thought, even the girl is laughing at me. Lisa caught up and pulled her stocking off Hedgie's head. You ridiculous little hedgehog, she laughed. Don't you know that animals don't wear clothes? Hedgie headed for his den, and Lisa started back toward the clothesline. That's when she saw all of her missing woolens. The animals had taken them, and each one was thinking, now I am wearing a magnificent hat. Lisa was still chasing them when Hedgie reached his den. How ridiculous they look! Don't they know that animals should never wear clothes? And that is the end of The Hat. Written and illustrated by Jan Brett. The first poem I have for you today, boys and girls, is called Winter Is. Winter is. Winter is a snowflake falling on the ground. Winter is a snowball, icy cold and round. Winter is a snowman that we made today. Winter is surprising, for my snowman ran away. The next book I'm reading is called The Story of Snow, The Science of Winter's Wonder. This is written by Mark Cassino and Jon Nelson, Ph.D. And the illustrations are by Nora Aoyagi. Now this is informational text. It explains very simply and very well how snow or snow crystals are formed in the clouds and the difference between snow crystals and snowflakes. I hope you learn a lot about snow, snowflakes, and snow crystals in this wonderful story, The Story of Snow. The Story of Snow, The Science of Winter's Wonder by Mark Cassino with Jon Nelson, Ph.D. For Pam, MC. For Yasuko for helping me with this book. From you I learned much, and I hope your efforts mean that our kids, Shisuho and Hasaki, appreciate seeing their names mentioned here. J.N. The Story of Snow, The Science of Winter's Wonder by Mark Cassino and Jon Nelson, Ph.D. Illustrated by Nora Aoyagi. Chronicle Books, San Francisco. Our story starts on a winter day, high up in the sky, in a cloud that is very, very cold. This is the story of snow. Clouds are mostly made of air, which we can't see. Then there is water vapor, water in the form of a gas, which we also can't see. We do see the billions of tiny droplets of liquid water and ice crystals that float in the cloud. They reflect light, making the clouds visible. Snow begins with a speck. Clouds are mostly made of air and water, but there are also bits of other things, like tiny particles of dirt, ash, and salt. Even living bacteria can float in the wind and end up in a cloud. A snow crystal needs one of these specks to start growing. These specks are all much smaller than the eye can see, but if you could see them, ash or soot from a fire or volcano, grain of pollen from a flower, salt left over from ocean water that evaporates, particle of soil, bacteria from plant leaves. The speck becomes the center of a snow crystal. When a speck gets cold enough, water vapor will stick to it. If you had a microscope that could see such small things, here is what you would see. Water vapor sticks to the cold speck, making the speck wet. More water vapor sticks to the wet speck, forming a water droplet. The droplet freezes into a ball of ice. More water vapor sticks to the ball of ice, and it grows into a hexagon-shaped ice crystal. Water vapor continues to stick to the crystal. Faster growth on the corners causes 6 branches to sprout. The branches keep growing, sprouting little arms of their own. And a beautiful snow crystal is born. These photographs of real snow crystals are shown much larger than their actual size. The crystals were collected during many different snowfalls. Actual size. A snow crystal forms as it falls. As the snow crystals get bigger and heavier, it starts to fall to earth. It keeps growing as it falls through its cloud, taking on its own special shape. The shape depends on how wet the cloud is and how cold it is. A snow crystal can start to grow one way, but then grow another way when it passes through a wetter or colder part of its cloud. The crystal stops growing soon after falling below the clouds. Snow crystals can be stars. One common snow crystal shape is the star. Star-shaped snow crystals usually have 6 arms, reaching out from a center point. The center point is the home of the speck that started the crystal. The 6 arms look alike, but they are almost never exactly alike. Parts of a snow crystal can break during the fall to earth, causing the arms to look different. Star-shaped snow crystals are called dendrites, which means tree-like. They form when a cloud is full of moisture and when the temperature hovers around 5 degrees Fahrenheit or minus 15 degrees Celsius. Snow crystals can be plates. Plate crystals are thin like star crystals, but they don't have arms. The simplest kind of plate is a hexagon with 6 straight sides. More complicated plates have points where arms almost grew. Simple plate crystals are much smaller than stars. They can be as wide as 1 millimeter, but they're usually a lot smaller. This is the actual size, that little teeny tiny pinprick is the actual size of this plate crystal. The points on the plate crystal are the beginnings of arms that were just starting to develop when the crystal fell out of its cloud and stopped growing. This is the simplest kind of plate crystal, a hexagon. Plates form when there's not enough moisture in the cloud for stars to form, and when the temperature conditions are a few degrees warmer or colder than the temperature range that stars require. Snow crystals can also be columns. Column-shaped snow crystals are shaped like pencils. They're not flat like stars and plates. Columns can form high in the clouds and at very cold temperatures. They are very tiny, and when they fall, they make for very slippery snow. A column has 6 sides. These are 3 types. Solid column. These are the smallest type of column. Hollow column. These are longer and more common than solid columns. Capped column. The caps on each end of these columns can be plate crystals or star crystals. This is the actual size, this teeny tiny dot, the actual size of this column crystal. Column crystals are very tiny, usually no longer than 0.5 millimeter. Capped columns, like this one, develop when a column crystal moves into a part of its cloud where the temperature is right for plates or stars to grow at the ends. The 2 end caps can grow to different sizes, as you can see here. This end is much bigger than this end. Six is the magic number for snow crystals. This is because of the nature of water. Water molecules, the smallest units of water, attach themselves into groups of 6, which usually leads to crystals with 6 arms or 6 sides. A perfect star or plate snow crystal has 6-fold symmetry. That means if you divided the crystal into 6 pie wedges, each pie wedge would have the same shape. Water molecules attach to each other in 6-sided rings, like 6 kids holding hands. When many of these hexagonal rings are joined together, a larger hexagonal crystal is formed. If you think of a star crystal as a clock, the arms of a star crystal can point to 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. Only these times. There's 12 o'clock at the top, then 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10. Snow crystals are rarely perfect. So much can happen during a snow crystal's fall to Earth. It is rare that one will turn out perfectly. If a droplet of water passes close to one arm of a snow crystal, that arm can start to grow faster. Before long, that one arm will be a lot longer than the others. This one is longer, that one is longer, this one is a lot longer, and that one's longer, and even this one. A snow crystal can be a twin. A snow crystal can have 12 arms. This is a twin crystal, which happens when 2 crystals start from the original speck and form on top of each other. A snow crystal can have bumps. If there are enough water droplets near the crystal, some can strike the crystal and freeze on contact. This gives the crystal little bumps called rime. Many snow crystals make one snowflake. Often snow crystals bump into each other and get stuck together. When this happens, snowflakes form. Hundreds or even thousands of snow crystals can be found in a single snowflake. 2 snow crystals stuck together. Snowflakes we see falling from the sky are usually clumps of snow crystals, like these. Individual crystals, which are sometimes also called snowflakes, can fall on their own, but they are much smaller and harder to see. Once a snow crystal lands, it starts to wither away. Snow crystals can't keep growing after they fall from the clouds. And when a crystal stops growing, it immediately starts to wither. Soon the arms of the crystal break down, and the crystal shape becomes rounded. This means that if you want to see a snow crystal, you need to catch it in the air, or find it very soon after it lands. When they're not in the clouds, surrounded by the water vapor they need to grow, snow crystals quickly start to erode. Try catching one on your sleeve or glove to see the crystal structure at its best. This little snow crystal is actually on the very tip of the finger of a glove. Are no 2 snow crystals alike? Some simple plate crystals may appear exactly alike, as seen through a high-quality microscope. But when it comes to more complicated snow crystals, though, odds are that no 2 are exactly alike. But then, no 2 leaves, flowers, or people are exactly alike either. Snow crystals are like us. We're each different, but we have a lot in common. How to catch your own snow crystals. Get ready. Get these things ready so you have them the next time it snows. A piece of dark cardboard or foam core board. It should be about the size of this book. Make sure that the cardboard is stiff enough to stay flat when you hold it by one edge. A magnifying glass so you can see the snow crystals better. Now, wait until it snows. During a snowfall. 1. Put the cardboard or foam core outside for at least 10 minutes before catching snow. It needs to be cold or else the snow will melt right after landing. Make sure the board stays cold and dry. Number 2. Gripping the board by one edge, hold the board out flat and watch as the snow lands on it. If it is snowing hard, step under a porch roof or some other shelter so less snow falls on the board. Otherwise, the board will fill up with snow. Number 3. Look at the smaller bits of snow that land on the board. This is where you will find the individual snow crystals. Use the magnifying glass to look at them closely. Number 4. Once you have looked at the snow, shake off the board and try again. In the right kind of snowstorm, you should be able to see many individual snow crystals. Snow catching tips. Make sure it's cold enough. If the snow melts when it hits the board, or if rain is mixed with the snow, the temperature is probably too warm. Look for tiny snow crystals, not big snowflakes. Remember, snowflakes are lots of snow crystals clumped together. Sometimes the snow is all broken up and looks like a light powder. Not every snowfall has unbroken snow crystals. If the snow just isn't right, don't give up. Try again another snowy day. Or wait until you go on a ski trip. A snow crystal is a letter from the sky. Ichiro Nakaya, Japanese scientist, 1900 to 1962. And that is the end of The Story of Snow, The Science of Winter's Wonder by Mark Cassino with Jon Nelson, Ph.D. The second and final poem I have for you today, boys and girls, is called First Snow. It's written by Marie Louise Allen. I hope you enjoy it. First snow. Snow makes whiteness where it falls. The bushes look like popcorn balls, and places where I always play look like somewhere else today. By Marie Louise Allen. Our third and final story today, boys and girls, is called The Mitten. This is a Ukrainian folk tale adapted and illustrated by Jan Brett. It's a story about a little boy named Nicky who wants his grandmother, Baba, that's what they call grandmothers in Ukraine. He wants his grandmother, Baba, to knit him snow white mittens. She's reluctant to do that because she's afraid he might lose them if he drops one in the snow. But she does it. And I think you'll find this just delightful, but I do want you to pay close attention to those illustrations. Remember I was telling you how Jan Brett always has little side panels that often give clues as to what is happening in the background. And I especially want you to pay attention to those today in this story as well, because you'll see Nicky and what he's doing. And then I will read to you about what's happening in the main illustration. And then you'll be able to see a little preview of what's coming next. So I think you'll enjoy this story if you really pay close attention to the illustrations, because they will help you to understand what's happening in the story a lot better. They'll improve your comprehension. So I hope you enjoy Jan Brett's version of The Mitten. The Mitten by Jan Brett. The Mitten, a Ukrainian folktale adapted and illustrated by Jan Brett, G.P. Putnam's Sons, an imprint of Penguin Group USA. For Sylvia Kyle, Ruth Ann Johnson, Rebecca Lim, and Tad Beagley, with special thanks to my Ukrainian friend Oksana Piasekij. Once there was a boy named Nicky who wanted his new mittens made from wool as white as snow. At first, his grandmother, Baba, did not want to knit white mittens. "If you drop one in the snow," she warned, "you'll never find it." But Nicky wanted snow white mittens, and finally, Baba made them. After she finished, she said, "When you come home, first I will look to see if you are safe and sound. But then I will look to see if you still have your snow-white mittens." So off Nicky went, and it wasn't long until one of his new mittens dropped in the snow and was left behind. A mole, tired of tunneling along, discovered the mitten and burrowed inside. It was cozy and warm and just the right size, so he decided to stay. A snowshoe rabbit came hopping by. He stopped for a moment to admire his winter coat. It was then that he saw the mitten, and he wiggled in, feet first. The mole didn't think there was room for both of them, but when he saw the rabbit's big kickers, he moved over. Next, the hedgehog came snuffling along. Having spent the day looking under wet leaves for things to eat, he decided to move into the mitten and warm himself. The mole and the rabbit were bumped and jostled, but not being ones to argue with someone covered with prickles, they made room. As soon as the hedgehog disappeared into the mitten, a big owl, attracted by the commotion, swooped down. When he decided to move in also, The mole, the rabbit, and the hedgehog grumbled. But when they saw the owl's glinty talons, they quickly let him in. Up through the snow appeared a badger. He eyed the mitten and began to climb in. The mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, and the owl were not pleased. There was no room left, but when they saw his diggers, they gave him the thumb. It started snowing, but the animals were snug in the mitten. A waft of warm steam rose in the air, and a fox trotting by stopped to investigate. Just the sight of the cozy mitten made him feel drowsy. The fox poked his muzzle in. When the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, and the badger saw his shiny teeth, they gave the fox lots of room. A great bear lumbered by. He spied the mitten all plumped up. Not being one to be left out in the cold, he began to nose his way in. The animals were packed in as tightly as could be. But what animal would argue with a bear? The mitten swelled and stretched. It was pulled and bulged to many times its size, but Baba's good knitting held fast. Along came a meadow mouse, no bigger than an acorn. She wriggled into the one space left and made herself comfortable on top of the great bear's nose. The bear, tickled by the mouse's whiskers, gave an enormous sneeze. Ah, 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 achoo! The force of the sneeze shot the mitten up into the sky and scattered the animals in all directions. On his way home, Nicky saw a white shape in the distance. It was the lost mitten silhouetted against the blue sky. As he ran to catch his snow-white mitten, he saw Baba's face in the window. First she looked to see that he was safe and sound, and then she saw that he still had his new mittens. And that is the end of The Mitten, adapted and illustrated by Jan Brett. I've enjoyed having you with me as I've read stories and poems about winter and snow. And I hope you learned some interesting facts about how snow crystals are formed in the clouds to make snowflakes and snow. I also enjoy hearing from you if you like watching my YouTube channel. So I want to say a special hello to Gilbert and Irisol. Thank you for sending me a message. If you haven't yet subscribed to this channel, you can do so. Just tap the word subscribe right there, and that way you'll get all the latest videos with stories and poems from Reading with Mrs. Adams. Boys and girls, there's one truth I want you always to remember, and that is that God loves you so much. So dare to dream the impossible, because all things are possible with God. I love you. Until next time, boys and girls. Goodbye.